A family goes to sleep on the last night of the year 2000. By morning, all four of them are dead. The man who killed them doesn't run. He stays. 4 hours. Eating their food. Using their computer. Bandaging his own wounds with items from their bathroom. And when he finally leaves, he takes almost nothing with him except his own identity, which no one has ever recovered. The Miyazawa family lives in Kamisoshigaya, a quiet residential corner of Setagaya Ward in Tokyo, right beside Sashigaya Park. Mikio Miyazawa is 44, working in marketing. His wife, Yasuko, is 41, a devoted homemaker. Their children, 8-year-old Nina and 6-year-old Rei, are exactly the kind of kids who leave bikes out in the yard and trust the rhythm of an ordinary evening. On the night of December 30th, 2000, that ordinary evening ends. Investigators later determined the killer entered through a second-floor bathroom window near the park, likely climbing a fence and an air conditioning unit to reach it. Sometime between roughly 11:30 at night and just after midnight, he kills all four of them. Mikio, Yasuko, and Nina are stabbed. 6-year-old Rei is strangled in his own bedroom. A struggle clearly took place. A broken sashimi knife blade is later found lodged in Mikio's head. Then, instead of fleeing, the killer does something almost no offender in the history of criminal investigation has done. He stays. Detectives eventually reconstruct hours of his movements inside the house. He goes into the kitchen, eats a melon, consumes 4 cups of ice cream, leaving the empty containers scattered on the floor, drinks several bottles of barley tea. He'd injured his own hand during the struggle with Mikio, so he goes looking for the family's first aid supplies, using bandages and even sanitary pads to wrap his bleeding fingers. At some point past 1 in the morning, records show he sits down at the family's own computer and starts using it, browsing, and apparently attempting to book theater tickets online. He uses the upstairs bathroom. He doesn't flush. The bodies aren't discovered until around 10:40 the next morning, when Yasuko's mother, unable to reach her daughter by phone, walks over and finds them. What investigators uncover at the scene over the following weeks is almost impossible to comprehend. Bloodstains. Fingerprints. DNA recovered from multiple sources throughout the house. The unflushed waste in the upstairs bathroom, analyzed and found to contain traces of sesame seeds and string beans from a meal he'd eaten earlier that day. He left behind a hip bag, 2 handkerchiefs, carrying traces of a cologne, Drakkar Noir. Several items of his own clothing, including a sweatshirt so specific that investigators trace it to a batch of only 10 units ever sold in Tokyo. In total, police recover more than 12,500 separate pieces of physical evidence. One investigator on the case later describes it plainly. Normally, at a crime scene, you have to search painstakingly for the smallest clue. Here, evidence was everywhere you looked. It should have been the easiest case imaginable to close. It becomes one of the largest manhunts in Japanese history. Thousands of officers are assigned to the investigation over the following years. None of it produces a match. No fingerprint in any database connects to the prints at the scene. No DNA sample submitted for comparison from any suspect investigators bring in ever lines up with what was recovered from the house. The early hours of the investigation don't help either, with hundreds of officers moving through the home in the initial response. Some of the more delicate trace evidence, like footprints, is compromised before anyone fully grasps how significant it might have been. Japan has no statute of limitations on murder. The case has never closed. It remains formally open to this day. 100 days after the killings, a small stone Jizo statue is placed near the Sengawa River, not far from where the Miyazawa family once lived. The house itself still stands, sealed, preserved by investigators exactly as it was, a quiet, ordinary home on a quiet, ordinary street, holding 12,500 pieces of evidence and not a single answer. If you want to uncover more dark truths and hidden histories, subscribe to FrameTale HQ, hit the notification bell, and leave your thoughts on this story in the comments below. Until next time, keep searching for the truth. If a killer left behind this much of himself, his DNA, his clothes, even his own blood, and still was never identified, what does that tell you about who he might have been?